Okay, fellas, welcome back to some more SBC gaming news, and we have a doozy of an episode here. I'll be covering mostly the PC handhelds, so the Legion Go, the ROG Ally, and the Steam Deck. Next week's episode should return to Retroid handhelds. I got a lot of news items already for that. But meanwhile, I'm going to focus on the PC handhelds for this episode. And before we begin, I'd like to read some comments on my previous episodes. So I just make this for fun because I like reading through these subreddits and seeing what information is there and what other people are saying. And so I thought other people wouldn't like this. It does the worst traffic-wise on all my content. I still really like making these episodes. It takes a lot more work than you think when you're watching it, but so when I see someone saying they like it, it makes me happy. So we got this comment from Gerard of Akundo 6721. Just discover your channel and subscribe immediately. You do great work. Thanks, buddy. I appreciate that. Those are kind words. That's my buddy YOLO. I think he's just being nice. This showed up in my Rex while I was lurking and trying to sleep. Sick, nasty video, man. Thanks, bro. I think he put that comment there to help the algorithm. We have some more comments. Raspberry 86853. Good info. Thanks for the timestamps. No problem, dude. I try to put timestamps in all my videos if it's applicable. We got YOLO here leaving a comment again. Showing up in my recommendations again. Good video. Thanks, YOLO. We got some comments here as well. So Ilkar Yolda has helped me out a lot. He helped me with the game music emulator because I was having some issues with it. So I would like to make a video on it soon. Thanks, Ilkar. And then provide some pro tips here about using Linux file systems for Windows by Paragon Software. I was talking about, accessing Linux partitions. You can also use the Windows subsystems for Linux on Windows 10 and above. I tried it out. The default install is Ubuntu, so basically it creates a virtual machine and then you can use Linux on that. I had to use that for experimenting with some stuff. I'll make a video or guide on that because a lot of these handhelds require you to flash an image. And the image has, usually ext4 partitions, which is used in Linux. And Windows can't really access that natively, so you need some other way to do it. And having an easy way to do it will make troubleshooting a lot easier for a lot of people. Alright, so that's my buddy Grape, Zago Jovanovic. But I was saying that if anyone leaves a comment asking for help, I do my best to help them out. And then I go above and beyond and make a full video just for that person if I think there's enough relevant information to be shared. So he was like, bet, bro. And then he asked me a question, how do I talk to women? And then I replied, you show them your Steam Deck with Stardew Valley installed on it. That is a pro tip, fellas. You can take it from me. It works every time. I'm just joking. Alright, this was from Rude Rain. Do you think the Onion OS team will support the Miu Flip? So just to sneak a little bit of 830 and our 28XX news in. Both consoles are out. Russ from Retro Game Core has reviews on both of them if you want to check them out. Seems like as of now, the 28XX is the slightly better console. But I think the overall conclusion is they both have flaws. The 830 has a little bit more. And it would be best to wait for revisions before buying them. Pre-orders went live. They all sold out. And so people are a little bit sad because they're like, I really wanted one. And I was like, I think you lucked out, fellas. I think you probably want to wait a little bit before buying these handhelds. Also, good news, I found a post where Schmertz and the Onion team got early copies of the A30, and they may port over Onion OS for that device. So they were saying that, it's a different chipset, the screen is rotated, it might be a little bit difficult to get it ported, but if it does, it'll definitely make the device a lot better. But yeah, overall, the takeaway, the 830, there's some flaws that I didn't notice. The battery life is really short because you have to overclock the device, and when you overclock it, it actually uses more power on the 830. Both of them kind of flawed. I would wait and see if they make any revisions before buying them. Okay, before we begin, I'd like to start with a PSA. So this is something new. We have a post from Clayton Jr. on the Retroid subreddit. Was mentioning that the Retroid credit card was hacked. So this guy is using a privacy virtual credit card on Retroid, and it can only be used on Retroid. So if you don't know, privacy is a service that lets you make a virtual credit card. There's a lot of settings you can do in terms of making it very restricted. So you can set a limit to how much you can spend on it. You can set a limit to where it can be charged. Looks like we got a charge of $0 at Zipco. It's a little weird because first of all, it's a $0 charge and Zip.co is a payment processor apparently. But yeah, that's not good news. I mean, someone has access to their credit card. Just giving a heads up, there might be potentially a data leak from Retroid where your credit card information may be compromised. So if you made a purchase at Retroid recently, I would check your credit card info to make sure that there were no suspicious charges being made. This is why you want to use PayPal or a virtual credit card. Personally, I use PayPal for almost everything. And even if you're living in the US with official vendors, it's just safer to use PayPal or a virtual credit card if possible. I remember Target had a huge data leak where credit card information was leaked. It doesn't matter where you shop, it may get stolen. It happens. So yeah, protect yourself, especially when shopping from anything from China. It doesn't matter where you're shopping from, even Amazon. I would be a little bit careful and try to use some sort of other payment processor that will kind of protect you and protect your information. It's not foolproof because PayPal can get leaked as well, but you know, there's another layer of security that they have to go through. Yeah, just a heads up. So if you buy anything from Retroid, make sure you take a look at whatever payment you used and make sure that nothing is happening there. Okay, moving on. I like to start with a funny or interesting post. This was posted by Cambino1 in the Steam Deck subreddit. And this is a Steam Deck display in Japan. It's a huge Steam Deck. I think this is really cool because in Japan and Korea, it's mostly console gaming and phone gaming. So if you look at ads, I went to Korea recently and in the subway, there are these huge ads and they're for mobile games. And I was like, oh man, like I was a little disappointed because like Korea used to rule certain scenes in the video game competitive world, like StarCraft, all the good players were from Korea. And then Overwatch, you know, a lot of the pro players were from Korea as well. League of Legends. And yeah, like, you know, the part of me where I'm like, Korean pride, bro. Like, let's see some Koreans play some Dota 2, man. I'm sick and tired of Korean teams getting wrecked. There was MVP Phoenix, I think, and they didn't do the best. And then I don't see any more Korean teams. Like, where's Korea at, bro? Anyways, getting a little off topic here, but it's kind of cool because in these countries, like, you know, PC gaming isn't that huge mainstream. You know, I know my buddy who lives in Japan. He's Japanese. He plays a lot of PC games. So I don't know if that's normal now, but back in the day, in Korea, like you would go to internet cafes, they will call it PC bang, you know, like literally a PC room, and you would pay to use the services there, and you can order food and stuff. So it's pretty neat. If you ever visit Korea, I would recommend going to check one out. But yeah, that's interesting. I did see the Steam Deck when I went to Korea as well. I went to a major, kind of like a main supermarket or retailer, and they had Steam Deck stuff there too. So that's kind of interesting. The gaming section had a lot of PC peripherals, but I didn't see anyone shopping in there. So I don't know if they're buying it. I saw a lot of Razer products, you know. Anyways. Okay, now we're moving on to new handhelds, and we're starting with the GPD Win Max 2 2024 version. This comes from Lilliputting, and the article was written by Brad Linder. So it's going to be, you know, like an incremental increase over last year's model. It's going to have the 808040U and the 8640U processors, and it's going to see a marginal increase in performance. It's probably going to cost roughly about $1,000. These devices usually are around that amount. And yeah, I don't know if you're interested in this device. It's something to look out for. Personally, I'm not the biggest fan because at that price point, I would rather just have a laptop, because while you can sort of hold it, it doesn't really feel too comfortable, and the keyboard is too small to be practical. And so at that point, I'd rather have something like a Legion Go where I can just dock it and use it as a workstation, or have a laptop or just a desktop. But yeah, I know there are people out there who actually use this device. I've seen it in workstation setups where it's docked. I've seen people use it in data centers and people who work on servers and things like that. So there's a crowd for this. So I mention it because even though I might not think the device is worth it for me, there's other people who may like it. Okay, we have another new handheld as well. This is the AOKZOE A2 Ultra, and it is a Intel powered handheld. And I don't know why they did this, but this also comes from Lilliputting, and it was written by Brad Linder. And here are the specs. Most of these specs are going to be very similar across these handhelds. Usually a 7 to 8 inch display, and then you're going to have anywhere from 16 to 64 gigabytes of RAM, and then 512 to a terabyte of hard drive space. And usually these handheld PCs perform very well. You know, they can play a lot of PC games, and emulation is a breeze to them. Probably gonna cost roughly around $1,000 because their previous version was roughly $800-ish here. So it's gonna be more expensive than that because it's the Ultra version. But yeah, like using Intel doesn't seem to be the move here. I don't think it's necessarily the fault of the hardware, but most likely the firmware or the driver. The performance is a little bit lackluster, and you're going to see worse performance on average. Some things perform a little bit better, but it's gonna drain power a lot more quickly. So yeah, it's like, why would you do this? Because it's objectively just worse. At this point, I would recommend buying a ROG Ally, a Legion Go, or a Steam Deck. It's gonna be cheaper and it's gonna be better, so just keep that in mind. Someone out there might want this though, because those devices may not be available where they live, or it may be a little bit too expensive, so this may be an option for them. Alright, speaking of Intel failing, we have the MSI Claw. This came out a while ago. Russ and Retro Game Core finally has a review out, and it's not a pleasant review for the device. So most people who review the device don't really think it's worth getting because, again, it performs worse than its counterparts and has, you know, worse battery life, even though it has a bigger battery pack. So I don't think there's any reason to get this unless it gets dropped in price significantly lower. And if you want to check out another review, the Fox here has an excellent review on the MSI Claw. He does a lot of thorough testing and has a lot of data. You can see it as infographics. You can just take a look at it and then realize, oh, this is why it's better, that's why it's worse. Now, I don't give too much weight to just plain numbers because I prefer to see how it feels in person. It's a little bit hard to tell if something is running at 60 frames per second versus 55. You know, just by eyeballing, it might be a little bit hard. Some people can, but the majority of people, it's kind of hard to tell the difference between hardware settings and then game settings. I think you can visibly tell from like the worst to the best, but in between gets a little bit more difficult. So I don't give it too much weight, but it's a good indicator of the value you're getting for what you're paying for. So at that price, I feel like it doesn't make sense to buy it. Just the ROG Ally and the Legion Go are at the same price or lower, and you get way better performance. Steam Deck as well. That said, I think MSI is slashing prices, so if it gets really cheap, it might be worth picking up. Like recently, the ROG Ally was $379, the non-extreme version at Sam's Club, and that's a decent price for a handheld. If you only play indie games, if you only want to do emulation, that's an okay price, you know? Now we're moving on to buyer advice, and then we have this post from Danny Simo1 in the Steam Deck subreddit, and it's talking about analysis of the visual flicker on the Steam Deck OLED and how that relates to causing fatigue or strain on the eye. Now, this only affects a very small percentage of people, but essentially, the screen flickers at a very fast rate, and some people can actually perceive it. Maybe not consciously, but your eyes will get very tired looking at the screen. And so that's something to consider when buying these devices, and I don't see a lot of people talking about it, because again, it only affects a very small percentage of people. But if you are one of those people where you're looking at a device and you're like, man, it's like I can't look at it for too long. Maybe one of these people, and it's something to consider, because if you're gonna buy a handheld that costs, $500 or more, and you can't look at it for more than 30 minutes, that's gonna be an issue, right? So that's an interesting post here. There's a lot of data. Obviously, take it with a grain of salt, because just because there's an infographic here doesn't mean the data was collected correctly. I didn't do an in-depth study on the data and how it's collected, but it may be enough for people who are affected to make note of it. Okay, moving on. We have more buyer advice. So there's a big Fallout craze now thanks to the TV show on Amazon Prime. I watched it. I enjoyed it, although there's some parts that I didn't like so much. I think it is the best video game adaptation I've seen so far. When I think of video game movies, I think of Uwe, and Uwe makes trash. There's no other way to put it. Sorry, Uwe, the movies you make are really bad. And, I've been waiting a long time for a good video game adaptation. There's like Assassin's Creed, Uncharted. I didn't watch those, but those are probably mid. And this one felt the best. Like, it felt like a watchable TV show, and it felt like it paid, this decent homage to the game as well. There are a lot of references that were well done, and I got a chuckle out of the hacking scene. They put in the hacking minigame in a scene, and I was like, well, it kind of fits. That said, there were some parts or writing elements that I didn't really like. I'm not going to go into spoilers, but it's this problem of abandoning narrative consistency in terms of logic for emotional consistency. But that said, I still enjoy the show enough. I don't like gore. Unfortunately, there's some gore in there, and I know that's weird to complain about it because that's game accurate. The Fallout series is very violent. You're blowing limbs off of people. And I was like, yeah, but like when I see it, it's like, a little bit more realistic. I'm just like, it doesn't feel good watching that kind of stuff. Anyways, if you wanted to play a Fallout 4, there's going to be some fixes for the frame rate. Now, that said, the game is weird in that the frame rate is tied to the physics, so you really don't want to change the frame rate in terms of making it go faster. But here's a fix. Before that, Fallout 4 got verified for the Steam Deck, and what happened was they removed the launcher. Yeah, I know that's really stupid, because if you remove the launcher, you have less access to the game's configuration settings. So if you want to bring the launcher back, this is a post from It's Y91K on the Steam Deck subreddit. There's a solution here. Reverend Doc said you can put in this command, Steam Deck equals 0% command % in the command line. And essentially, it will say launch the game as if it's not on the Steam Deck, and then it'll bring back the launcher. So don't worry, you can still update Fallout 4, and you can just put that command in there and get the launcher back. The reason I'm mentioning this is you will want to launch the launcher, and then you're going to go to a directory and then edit the Fallout 4 preferences.ini file, and you're going to set the iPresent interval to 1 and change it to 0. So yeah, there's detailed instructions there if you want to check it out, and it would help the game run a little smoother. I've seen a lot of people playing Fallout 3, Fallout New Vegas, the original Fallout 1 and 2 and Tactics. Mostly though, New Vegas and 4. So if you wanted to play those games on a Steam Deck, you can check those fixes out. They should run okay if you have a Windows-based handheld though. Okay, moving on, here is another reason if you wanted to buy a Steam Deck. So I gave you a reason to possibly avoid these handhelds, and that is the pulse width modulation flicker causing fatigue. This one is if you wanted to use Android, and this is something I didn't really consider why. But a lot of people want to play these mobile games on the Play Store, like Call of Duty Mobile, and I didn't know it was that big, but yeah, I guess I'm getting old. So Steam Deck OS 3.5.19 release is stable, and then you can install Waydroid on it, and then you can play these Play Store games on your device. Now, you can install Android natively on the Steam Deck. I don't think that's worth doing, but you can probably use Waydroid. There's a video here from 10 Minute Steam Deck Gamer, and this is a pretty nice tutorial. I think this channel is pretty good. There was another tutorial about resetting the sudo password if you forgot it, so I recommend checking it out. This was posted by Ryan Rudolph on the Steam Deck subreddit. That's pretty neat. These consoles are so darn neat. And the best thing is, it takes a little bit of tweaking, but the community comes in and makes this information very accessible. And then you can use it however you want. So for me, I'm like, I don't see the need for Android, but if you wanted it, it's there now. So I think that's awesome. Okay, now we're moving into bugs, fixes, and updates. So we have this post from Alex_DMR in the Legion Go subreddit. And this was posted about 2 weeks ago. It is a new Legion Go update, and there's two important things the community has been asking for. So custom key mapping or control key mapping, and then battery bypass set to 80%. And so these are two things a lot of people have been asking for. So if you wanted custom key mapping or battery bypass, I would update. That's pretty awesome. Okay, so here's the thing. Let's say you're excited to use battery bypass, but you updated and it wasn't working. So this was posted by TapRoyal9220. They're saying that, hey, it doesn't really work for me. You have to do one thing. So this was posted by DryAfternoon4450. This is a possible fix. So you want to uninstall Legion Space, restart, download the latest one from the Lenovo webpage, restart, and then that should solve the issue. So if you update it and it's not working, try reinstalling Legion Space and make sure you restart in between. Now let's say, why should I care about battery bypass, or what is battery bypass? So battery bypass will charge the battery up to a certain percentage, like 80%, and then it will no longer charge the battery. You won't touch it. It will bypass the battery and draw power mainly from the AC plug. The reason why you want this is if you're constantly recharging your device to 100% while draining power from it, it will reduce the full charge capacity. So this is a very nice data set from TapRoyal9220. They lost 1% of charge capacity per month, and that's a pretty big deal because you're just gonna get less battery life out of your device. And it's not like they were using it 24/7 plugged into the wall. They were trying to take care of the battery and it went down. So battery bypass is something we need for modern handheld devices, and it's something we need for laptops and stuff like that. It will prolong the life of the battery, and it's something that you want. So the number I've heard was to keep the battery between 20 to 80%, and that should be the best in terms of battery health. I don't worry too much about it, but if you do care about it, then you don't want it to drop below 20, and you don't want it to go above 80%. Here's a neat thing here. This is from extravirus9958. You can change the battery bypass limit, using a PowerShell script. So I thought that was pretty neat. If you want to check that out, you can check this post out, and there's a script right there. You can do it in Windows. We have a new update. People have been talking about this. It is AFMF, and I don't really like that abbreviation because it just looks weird. Like, what is AFMF? How do you pronounce it? It stands for AMD Fluid Motion Frames. And basically what this is it will predict what frame is going to happen next, and then create a frame in between the two frames. So it'll virtually increase your frame rate. It seems to work for some games better than others. So some people may like it better than others. But essentially, you want more frames, a higher frame rate for it to work well than if you are, let's say, having 30 frames per second and you turn this on. You probably won't notice much of a difference because the in-between frames are going to be the same as the frames before and after it, pretty much. So it depends. I think that's a pretty neat update, but you know what? Maybe it's me getting a little bit older and remembering what games were like back then. It wasn't perfect, but there was a period of time where optimization was very important. So they would put some work into optimizing the games. Not every company did, but I remember Valve, especially with Left 4 Dead 1 and Team Fortress 2, it ran on potatoes, essentially. I had a Windows XP PC, and it didn't have a graphics card, and these games ran just fine on him. So it's I don't like this because it gives more of an excuse for companies to make unoptimized PC games, and we've been seeing too much of that lately, where even if you have like a 3090, that games don't run at 60 frames per second, and they're stuttering and performance hits. You know, it's good to have this as a last resort to make underperforming hardware feel better, but I think the better move is to optimize the game so they run well in the first place. And there's a lot of old games that actually do that. And I don't want this to be a fad where we rely on, upscaling, on lossless scaling, fluid motion frames, whatever technology to make the games look better than they should be. And yeah, I think that's the real answer instead of relying on these solutions. But I think it's good when we're talking about underpowered hardware for sure, so that everyone can play these games and have them look good. But I don't want it to be a crutch. So just take that as you will. Alright, so if you're wondering, is there some benefit? I've seen two differing opinions. Some people really like it and they feel like the games run a lot better or feel smoother. And other people don't really notice a difference at all. And so this was posted by Toto Fra in the ROG Ally subreddit. I don't really see any benefit with the fluid motion frames. It depends. I guess the best way to check it out is to do it yourself and see if it feels better or not. If it doesn't feel better, turn it off. If it feels better, leave it on. Okay, so there's a lot of related posts of bugs related to updating and the stuff not working. So this was posted by XOMEGA-D in the ROG Ally subreddit. And they're trying to update Armoury Crate, and it's failing because they want to get, these new features. And there's a fix for it. There's a couple fixes. Just wait and just wait and it'll update eventually. You can turn your firewall off, or you can turn Wi-Fi on and off. Yeah, I don't know. These handheld PCs are kind of buggy. This was posted by Maleficent Job, and then the OP posted a solution as well. If you're having problems updating, you can try waiting, turning the firewall on and off, or turning the Wi-Fi on and off. We have another post here from Bart's Holloway in the ROG subreddit related to the fluid motion frames. I'm getting a yellow exclamation mark, and is there a way to fix it? And here's a nice, concise fix from user Realistic Sans. I like how it starts with read the instructions. RTFM was a common saying. Read the blank manual. There's an expletive there, but you gotta read the docs, read the manual. V-Sync needs to be off in both the game and in AMD Adrenalin. Game needs to be DirectX 11 or higher. Game needs to be in full screen. You must turn off the ROG Ally Metric Overlay, the one from the Armoury shortcut. Turn on the AMD Adrenalin Overlay Metric, and then check the driver version of your GPU to make sure it is the most recent one with fluid motion frames. Some people reported they need to restart or recycle through the resolution to make it work. If your game already has FSR3 enabled, don't use AFMF. Wow, that's a very nice detailed answer. It goes through everything, it's very concise. So if you have that issue as well, where you have the yellow exclamation mark, try that out. Thank you, Realistic Sans. Most of these are going to be bug or fix related. So we have a post from Godric84, resolved AFMF not working with the update. So here's another solution. You gotta lower the resolution in the game for it to work. Now, this kind of shows that these handheld PCs are very buggy and it's not very user-friendly in that things just work. So we're not quite at the console level, not the recent ones, but the older ones where you have a cartridge, you just plug it in and it just worked, Hopefully it worked. If it didn't, you were kind of screwed. So here's another related bug post. If you update it and you're trying to use fluid motion frames and your console is very laggy, there's a fix for that as well. This was posted by Duciu Hero. Hopefully I said that correctly. They're saying that console feels super laggy. Here we have Realistic Sans again, posting a very nice and concise solution. Go to Device Manager, go to Display Adapter, right-click AMD Radeon Graphics Driver, select Properties, Disable, Enable, Restart. If that doesn't work, go to AMD Adrenalin and then Repair and Reset. You can cycle through resolutions as well. So basically the solution to most of these problems seems like either reinstalling things or then disabling and enabling things and then cycling through resolutions. So if it's not working for you or super laggy after you update it, try doing these steps. Here's another one. So let's say you're trying to update and you see this error, AMD software Adrenalin edition warning. The version of AMD software they have launched is not compatible. This was posted by Chris Spicy Wiener in the ROG Ally subreddit. And this fix is super simple. Just go to the Microsoft Store library and get updates. And then you get the updates there. So here is an interesting bug for the Steam Deck after updating to version 3.5. This is posted by GrabZell in the Steam Deck subreddit. It's relating to the console crashing a lot. And there's a lot of discussion about why that is. Sometimes people say increase the VRAM buffer. But there was an interesting comment here that I think kind of nails what the problem is. So Biting Chaos was mentioning that they were monitoring the memory usage and the Steam Deck was constantly out of memory, which led to the crashes and rebooting. They said having a static swap file size of only 1 GB seemed to be the problem, and then they set it to 8 GB and then they stopped crashing. So it might be that you just need to increase the size of your swap file. And they put a handy guide here in terms of what to do that. Also, if you're getting slow downloads, the use of HTTP2 was causing that as well. So they disable that and then they increase the swap file size. That's pretty neat. People were saying maybe the memory is corrupted, the memory management system is corrupted. There are a lot of theories. I think this one may address some people's issues. So if you're having problems, you can try that fix. Another fix I saw was to downgrade the BIOS, and that might fix it as well. Okay, last fix of the day, we have this post from Lasinge Pont from the ROG Ally subreddit. They're having weird trigger clicking on their device, and turns out there's a little rubber pad that got moved. If you look at their image here, this is supposed to be the position of the rubber pad. That's crazy. A little thing moving can cause an issue. Like, even these, premier devices have design flaws or quality control issues. That's something to keep in mind. But something to also keep in mind is because of these issues and the expense of fixing it, if you can't get an RMA to be covered by the warranty, you have to be willing to fix it yourself. So just make sure whenever you're getting into the scene, even for the more expensive devices, the nicer ones, you may have to learn how to troubleshoot your own problems and fix it yourself, because it's going to cost an arm and a leg if the warranty doesn't cover it. That's something to keep in mind. These devices aren't perfect and there are going to be some problems. Now for me, I don't mind doing it too much, but I still get frustrated even though I'm more comfortable doing this sort of stuff. It's not a pleasant feeling when something you paid money for, usually a lot of money for, isn't working properly. Okay, now we're going into user creations and we have some crazy ones. We're gonna start with this modded Steam Deck that holds 19 terabytes. A little bit of a spoiler here to add more memory. This was posted by AC2334 in the Steam Deck subreddit. And they made this monster here. It's a combination of the SSD NVMe enclosures, as well as USB hubs with USB flash drives on it. Now, I don't know why you would want this amount of storage space, but yeah, it's entirely possible to do it. I like the responses. Your boy Dan, bro, I thought I was looking at a rail for a rifle for a second. So here's the thing, AC2234 made a guide on how to create it yourself. The exact positioning and everything needs to be tweaked so that it's comfortable to hold. And they have some detailed images here. There's a huge parts list. So they're going to post the list, but then it got blocked as spam because of all the hyperlinks. Now, do I think this is worth? Not really in terms of practical use, but there is a scenario where I think this would be handy. So for me, I always look towards the future, and I think of a future where we don't have internet connection or reliable power, or Steam goes down as a service and they no longer exist. What can you do, right? The thing about Steam, and this is a feature that people don't talk about, you can keep Steam offline forever. Some people might say that you need to log in to update. That is false. There is a guide out there. If you want to know, let me know. I'll link the Reddit post. There is a guide out there to keep your Steam install offline forever. And the reason why you might want this is in case Steam goes out of business. You know, it's probably not going to happen, but you never know, right? You have a huge library, right? You probably want to download the entire library and then keep a gaming rig up where you have access to all the games and just keep it offline forever so that you can keep playing your games. That's one of the things I don't like about digital media is that you can lose access to it. We've seen it happen too many times. You want to make sure you have access to all the games. So this mod may be something that the super paranoid are looking for. So 28.5 terabytes, probably not enough for modern games where they just take up so much space. But it's probably going to be a good enough amount of space for smaller games. Here is an interesting battery mod for the ROG Ally. This is from Sorry I Don't Speak Potato, and essentially they modded the case to attach a battery, a laptop battery on the back of it. Now it looks clean, and out of all the battery mods I've seen, this is probably the most well done. It just looks very nice. It doesn't block the vent holes there. And if you want instructions, Sorry I Don't Speak Potato released a video guide on how to do it. So their YouTube channel is CPPC Tech, and they walk you through it. Now, in my opinion, is it worth it? I don't think so, because while you get a smidge more of battery life. So if you use this and a battery bank, you're gonna get 3 hours at max settings. I'm gonna be honest, on a smaller screen like that, I don't need games at max settings. I just want battery life, so I would just lower the settings. And if I have to have a huge laptop battery attached to the back, and also a battery bank, I'd rather just plug it into the wall at that point. But yeah, this might apply to some people, and essentially the people who don't have access to reliable power. So people who are mobile, people who are living in vans, people who are traveling a lot. This may be a little bit better. But yeah, I'm a little worried though, because having a huge battery pack is always like a fire hazard. Like you want to limit the amount of batteries you have around you, because if you see, battery fires, it's super scary. You just never know when it's going to happen, and then you can't stop it. So yeah, that's something to worry about. But I thought it was pretty neat because it was done in a very clean fashion. It was the cleanest mod I've seen so far. We have another post. This was from user Arcanizin on the Legion Go subreddit. The original post was posted by Mickey Page, and this was talking about a custom back cover for the Legion Go. It's made from aluminum, or as they would say across the pond, aluminium. It looks pretty neat, so apparently it works very well. It costs roughly 80 pounds for them to have this designed and shipped to them. It does increase performance according to the user. So, if you have a giant thing of metal, people are worried that it won't get too hot, but it seems to dissipate the heat very evenly and quickly so that it doesn't get warm on your fingers, and it helps take the heat away from the SSD install as well. So I thought that was pretty neat. If you have a Legion Go and you're looking for, a backplate that's a little bit more durable, this may be an option. It's gonna be expensive though. I've seen a lot of 3D printed ones that are pretty neat, and so you can go that route as well. But if you want something, a little bit more durable than plastic, you can try this. Okay, now this is a home setup. This was posted by BX Ken Carson in the Legion Go subreddit. It's a super clean setup. I like it. It's a little nook, and there's a slab of wood there, and they have a very clean setup. Everything is wireless for the most part, and then the monitor is routed through the wall. So there are some recommendations people made. So people were saying, why not put the Legion Go on top of the desk if you actually take it to go? And they were suggesting you drill a hole here and then mount it like that. I think that'll look pretty nice. I still like this. All right, we have another clean setup. There's so many clean setups, by the way. I'm just selecting a few of them. There's so many in these subreddits for the ROG Ally, the Steam Deck, and the Legion Go. This was posted by Dalek G in the Legion Go. Or is it Dale Kilogram? I don't know. I'm sorry if I'm butchering your names. But yeah, they have a really clean setup here. It looks super comfy. They have this little end table here, and they have an arm. So they can recline the couch, and then if you take a look here, there's a little cubby hole with controllers and stuff, so you can just lean back and then grab it. That looks super comfortable. I am a little worried though, because I see a lot of posts of people gaming in their bed and they have like monitor arms. The funniest one I saw was like they had this like collar device where it rests on the sternum, and then it's just like in their face, you know, and it's just balancing on their sternum. And I was like, wouldn't that get a little bit tiring after a little bit? I guess you gotta be buff to use that. But yeah, I saw a lot of posts of people just reclining in their beds, and it just brought to mind WALL-E, the movie, where everyone's in hovering chairs and everyone's gotten like turned into a chungus because no one's moving. And I was like, is society going down that route? And probably. I mean, I'm like that too. I barely move. Oh yeah, some updates. So I tried out some more custom firmware on this thing. I tried out Spectral Elect 2 and 3, and I ended up not liking it as much. I didn't spend too much time with it, but the reason why I didn't like it is it seemed to be very similar to stock OS. It didn't seem to have a lot of features. Like Game Boy Advance was still stretch full screen. There's a lot of dust on this screen. And it didn't seem to really improve anything, so I rather prefer using stock if it's going to be similar. MIUI is still the best. I can't install Batocera on this because the installer only works for the first revision, but I did see, thanks to Nully, or whatever the latest version of Batocera is, AMD Plus is going to be updated for all the devices, including the M17. So I'm kind of holding off on making my M17 review until I can get Batocera installed on this and then check it out. Hopefully they have support for the third revision. And the Taki firmware just seemed to be like the stock firmware with more settings. And I didn't try that yet, but I'm like, it's probably similar to MIUI at that point. So yeah, I'm still enjoying this device. The takeaway that I have is this is just fun to use. When you're playing games on it, it's just fun. I actually like the face buttons for the most part. The analog stick works okay. But yeah, this D-pad placement, that's the only thing. Or redefining speakers as well, but yeah. Having fun with that. So I'm experimenting with all the custom firmwares. I'm waiting for Batocera to get updated for the M17 before I check it out. And I have to do some DS game testing. I tried out the DS emulator install that Sleepy had, and some issues I ran into is the key binding is terrible and I don't know how to change it. So I tried to look up what Stuart Fu did for Drastic on the Miyoo Mini Plus. And since I believe Drastic is a closed source emulator, so this guy made hooks into the emulator, I think. That's how he explained it. I'm not too technically knowledgeable about this, but so I was like, how do you make keybinds? Because I was like, I just want the same keybinds as Onion, you know, like pressing menu and, you know, having hotkeys. Because for this, I got it to the point where I have two screens next to each other, or you can swap between the main screen and have it take up most of the screen. But you can't really access the menu. If you do, it's very slow and cumbersome to use. And I just wanted an easy way to bring the stylus up. It's either mapping it to the D-pad, which mirrors the D-pad. So if you're moving a character, it also moves the stylus on the screen as well. And it's kind of unusable for Phantom Hourglass. The D-pad mod moves the character with the D-pad, right? But if you're moving the stylus as well, like let's say you're trying to access the map, it closes the map out because your character moves. And I'm like, this is, what is this? And the crazy part is, they have this analog stick here, right? This analog stick mirrors the D-pad, and this analog stick mirrors the face buttons. And I'm trying to look if you can separate it, and as far as I know, there's no custom operating system that does that. And I'm like, what is the point of having this if it's the same as this? What? Guys, who designed this? Please. You have two analog sticks. Let me remap these. So yeah, that's a little bit frustrating, but I'm diving into the code. Again, I'm not too smart, and I gotta be honest, huge props to the people who make open source software. You know, Sean and Amanda's MinUI, our Paradise team for Clicky, the Onion team. So the people who make these software changes, like, man, you guys are doing great work. I tried doing it myself and it's hard. Huge props, huge respect, man. But yeah, one of my goals is to make sure that the analog sticks can be registered as separate inputs, and that would make the device much more usable. Because imagine this: you're playing drastic, you know, and you're playing DS games, and the cursor, the cursor or stylus emulation is bound to the analog stick. Wouldn't that be dope? I think that'd be cool. I think that would make it infinitely more usable. So I'm trying to figure that out. I probably won't, but anyways, that's gonna be it. Wow, that's been a long episode. Thank you so much for dropping by and watching. I really do appreciate it. As always, feel free to leave a comment if you have any feedback, if you want me to cover anything, if you need help with anything. I read all the comments. If it elicits a response, I will give one. Hey, thank you for all the kind compliments as well. I appreciate it. A lot of fun covering this. But yeah, that's gonna be it. I will return to handhelds and I'll go more into detail on the A30 and the 28XX in the next episode. Well, not just a little bit, because you know, Retro Game Core already covered it into great detail, and there's a lot of other YouTubers covering it as well. That's gonna be it before I keep rambling. As always, thank you so much for dropping by and watching. I genuinely do appreciate it. And as always, hope you guys are staying safe and sane out there, and catch you guys next time.